Good morning, Year 5s, and welcome to your maths lesson for today. Thank you so much to all those children who sent in their work on Teams. I just want to say that with Teams, when I do the quizzes, if the answer is not exactly like the computer, then it will mark it wrong. Doesn't mean your answers are wrong. It just means that sometimes if you've written as a fraction and I just wanted the number, then the computer is going to see it differently and it's not going to read it as correct. But in the evening, I will go through and do all your feedback and see where I can give you the marks. And I will then give you feedback and I will change your mark for you when I go through your papers. Okay, so most of you who submitted your maths for Monday, you would have noticed that your marks have increased because I have gone back and seen what you have done and corrected it, okay? So even if you think you've done really badly, perhaps you haven't, it's just the way in which you have answered it, okay? So I'm not gonna go through every single time how to answer it because all questions are different. I've tried to put in brackets now next to the question how to answer it, but please don't panic and think that you've done really poorly because you will get feedback from us as to how you have done. And some of you will have seen that you've done really well now with your maths from yesterday, okay? So that's just a little bit of information going forward. Also with the feedback, just know that I'm teaching this week at school, so I'm only getting home at 4 o'clock, the earliest, that's if we don't have meetings. And so sometimes I'll only be able to look at your work in the evening. So if you don't get it back immediately, please do not panic. It just means I have not been able to look at it, okay? So come back to it the next day and have a look at it, see what I've said as my feedback or my comments. And some of you might just need to go and rewatch the video, doing a lot of the input. If you're doing the input with me, then you will hopefully be finding where you're making your mistakes, okay? Remember, it's not just about watching the video, it's actually about doing the work as well. So we're going to get going and we're going to be looking at applying our equivalent fraction knowledge, which is our learning objective for today. So please make sure you have paper ready. You're going to need lots of paper. You're going to need a pencil. You still need to do your working out, okay? You can't do it in your head. And the children that we're teaching at school are all having to show they're working out, and that really cements and helps them to remember the steps in order to follow so that they get the answers correct, okay? So if you're struggling with your equivalent fraction knowledge, perhaps today, make sure you have everything ready so that you can really target and understand that section. It's very easy, it's not difficult. And those of you who are struggling with your times table knowledge, make sure that you have a times table grid. You can just Google one and one will come up on Google and you can then use that to help you with your times table knowledge. And you can see now why knowing your times tables is very important. So I thought that maybe it would be a really good idea for our starter today is to just do equivalent fractions so that if you struggled yesterday, you can then have 5 goes at making sure that you've understood it, okay? So let's give it a go and then we'll go through it again with the answers and then hopefully you can figure out your silly mistakes if you're making any. So here are your 5. So pause the video now and have a go at answering those 5 equivalent fractions. Just remember that the question mark, you just write the digit for me as your answer, okay? Don't write out the whole fraction, just write out the digit as your answer. So good luck. Super, let's have a look. Right, so we've got 5/10 is equal to something 50th. Right. Now, it is very important that you are following with me, especially if you didn't do very well with your equivalent fractions yesterday. So the first thing to do is to set out our work. All right. So on your piece of paper, you should have your 2 fractions written down like this. That is step number 1. Right. Step number 2 is I need to look at my information. I've got a 5, I've got nothing, my question mark basically, and I've got 10 and I've got 50. So is it the numerator, the top numbers that have more information, or is it the denominators, the bottom numbers? Right, it is the bottom numbers. So I'm going to draw my arrow, okay? And I'm going in this direction because I'm wanting to find out the missing value here. So I'm going from this number to that number because ultimately I want to find out what the missing value is for this number here. So I draw my arrows in, pointing in the direction of my missing value. That is step 2. So step 1, set out your work and decide using your arrows. Step 2 is which direction you're moving in. Right, I'm going to start with the bottom numbers because they're the ones that give me the most information. So I'm going to say, what did I do to 10 to get 50? And I times it by 5. Now, this is a good time to pause and stop because this is where a lot of silly mistakes get made. I now go and check. Is 10 times 5 50? And I am very confident that 10 times 5 is 50 because I know my times tables and I can say, yes, I'm happy. If you wrote divide by 5, for example, and remember it is only timesing or dividing, and I said 10 divide by 5, is 10 divided by 5 50? No, it is not. So that's where we can see where we've made our silly mistakes, okay? It's very important that you're pausing and you're checking those steps in between. Right, now, the reason why we write this times 5 where the arrow is that when I check it, I'm going in this direction and then I'm multiplying it by this digit. So I'm saying 10 times 5 is 50. I'm happy with that. And now whatever I do here, I need to do here. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. So I'm going to times that number by 5, and I'm going to say 5 times 5 is 25. So all you have to do is write the number 25 as your answer, especially when you're looking at teams. All I want is just for you to write 25, okay? Otherwise, what happens is some people leave gaps and they put decimals, they put the slanty line, which is fine, but then they leave a gap and the computer doesn't recognize that. So just write the answer for me today, okay? So you are going to get some equivalent fractions like this in your team's quiz. So just write the number for me. Don't go and write out the whole fraction, right? Now, when you're doing your working out, this is what I should be seeing in your workbooks when you come back to school, okay? Right, so let's do number 2. Again, step number 1, write the fraction out. Let me do it in black though. Right, number 1, write the fractions down. Equals, and now I've got a number 12 at the top and I've got a gap at the bottom. Right, now I go and decide which direction am I going in. Right, here is my missing value. So I'm going to put the direction to the missing value. Okay, I'm wanting to try and find it out. Okay, and so I'm going to put my arrows. I'm pointing to the value that I'm missing. Okay, that's very important. Right, what did I do to the 4 to get 12 is going to be my next step. Okay, and I'm going to use this information because I've got more information in the top numbers than I do at the bottom numbers. So now I'm going to say 4 something 12, and I'm going to say, right, it's going from smaller to bigger, so I've got to be timesing my number, and I'm saying I need to times it by 3, and now whatever I write over here, I write at the bottom, multiplied by 3, and 7 times 3 is 21. And again, this is what I should be seeing on your piece of paper right now, okay? Making sure that you've got your arrows so you know in which direction you're moving in. Have you done this to the one number? You must do the same to the other number. And then in teams, when you're answering it, all you would answer is 21. All you would write is the number 21, okay? Right, number 3. Step number 1, hopefully you're now catching on. What is step number 1? Step number 1 is write down the fraction. Great job, guys. Right. Step number 2 is decide which direction my arrows are going to move. So I've got my missing value here. So I'm going to point my arrows and both arrows have to go in the same direction. Okay, so that is pointing to the missing value and I put in my arrows. I now decide which one has more information. The bottom numbers have more information. And I'm saying 12 something to 6. Now I'm going from big to small. So that's why it's very important to have my arrow. So I'm going to divide and I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. And now I can say 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so that is your answer. Again, I should be seeing all of this working out. Exactly what you see here is what I should see on your piece of paper. And then on the quiz, you just have to write the number 4. Right, number 4. Right, step number 1, write down the fractions. Equals. Right, step number 2. Oh, there's a bit of an error here, guys. So sorry. This was not meant to be a 7. That's a typo. Can you just change that to a 9? And I'm going to give you some time now just to go through it. So can you please change that to a 9? So I've started it for you. And I'm not going to go and redo this whole video. So just could you change that to a 9? Sorry, that was a typo. If you change it to a 9, can you just redo that one for me? And you can pause the video now and just have a go at that one. That should make a lot more sense. I think some of you probably got stuck on number 4. Great. Okay, so let's go through it. All right, so first of all, I write down my fractions. Then I have a look at my missing value, which is over here, and I'm going to put my arrows in. Okay, right. Now, once I have my arrows, remember it's pointing to the missing value. I'm going to say, what did I do to 49 to get 7? Because I'm going to use this information because I have more information in my bottom numbers than my top numbers. So 49 divide by 7 gives me 7. Okay, very important. I'm checking to see if my answer makes sense. 49 divide by 7 gives me 7. If you wrote times 7, then when you go and do your pause and you check, 49 times 7 is not going to give me 7. So there I will know that I need to divide it. I need to change that times to a divide. Now, whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. Right. And have I done that correctly? Because sometimes this also, I see this quite often. We put times and then we decide to put a times instead of a divide. So hopefully you picked up that silly mistake and you said, no, Miss Fink, that doesn't make sense. So we're going to must be divide because whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. And now I say 21 divided by 7 is 3. Okay, and there is my answer. And the last one, question number 5. First of all, I'm going to write down my fraction. 8 equals something over 16. And I've got 10. Right. Now I'm going in a different direction. So I need to point my arrow, and hopefully now this is starting to make sense, to the missing value, okay, which is over here. And both arrows have to be pointing in the same direction. Then I need to decide which one of these am I going to use. I'm going to use the bottom numbers because it's giving me the most information. So I'm going to say 16 divide by 2, and that's why it's so important we're using these arrows. These arrows are showing me the direction I'm moving in. So I'm saying 16 divide by 2 gives me 8. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number, and say 10 divide by 2 is 5. And hopefully that makes sense. So just a quick recap of the steps. Step number 1, make sure you write down the fractions. Step number 2 is draw your arrow to the missing value, and that is the direction you're going to be moving in. Step number 3 is then look and see which one gives you the most information. Is it the numerators or the denominators? Which one has 2 bits of information? Once I decide that, I'm then going to say, am I timesing or am I dividing? And using my knowledge to then decide if it's timesing or dividing, and then pausing it. Remember that very important pause to go and check and to say back to myself, is 16 divide by 2 equal 8? And if you need to use your finger to show the arrow, then do that. What I did see quite a bit of is just blank like that with no arrows. And the reason why I say don't be lazy and put in the arrows is when you're trying to go and check, you will then might say 18 divided by 2 is 16. You don't know which direction you're moving in, okay? And you might say it's divide instead of times, or you might say times 2, and then you would say this is times 2, and then you would work out this to be 20, okay? So make sure you're putting in your arrow. It is very important so that you know which direction you are moving in, so that when you're pausing to go and check, you can say 16 divided by 2 is 8. Hopefully that has made a lot more sense to you now, all right? And if not, I suggest you go and rewatch this whole thing again just to get it secure. Right. We're going to be taking that knowledge that we've learned of equivalent fractions and applying it now to pictures. Now, this is nothing scary. In fact, this is just like a little bit of problem solving and just having to think. There's nothing scary about this. I don't want you to panic or worry yourself. I want you to take a nice deep breath from me now and say you can do it. Right. So we're going to look at this big question together, and it says, please color in a third of the shape. Now, when we're looking at a fraction, we know the top number is how much that we've eaten, we've colored in, all right? And the bottom number tells us how many pieces I have divided my shape into equally. So I want to color in a third of the shape. So first of all, I have to look, has my shape been divided into 3 equal parts? Because that's my bottom number. Yes, it has. So I'm very happy. So all I have to do now is color in 1 part of that. So if I had to color in a third, it would just be 1 part because I have 1 out of the 3. And there it is there. This one, however, I have a fraction of a quarter. But when I look here, I do not have 4 equal parts. My circle has been divided into 8 equal parts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my equivalent fraction knowledge. So I'm going to use quarters, and I'm going to say it equals to, now how many pieces do I have here in total? I have 8, which is the bottom number. Remember, the bottom number tells me how many times I have divided a shape up equally. Right, now that I know that, I can then use my working out. This should look very familiar to you now. Right, step number 1, write out the fractions. Step number 2, draw your arrows. Going to the missing value. Step number 3, look for which one has the most information. And then decide, what are you doing? Are you timesing or dividing? In this case, you are timesing by 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. Taking my pause and checking my answer. And whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. And 1 times 2 is 2. And so now I know that I'm going to color in 2 parts of this, okay? And you will notice that that looks like a quarter shape, okay? And I've got 2/8 is actually equal to a quarter. It's the same amount of space that I'd be taking up. So there is using my equivalent fraction knowledge, which is nothing scary, which is actually quite exciting. So quickly, let's just remind ourselves, can you do these 2 questions using your equivalent fraction steps? Just to make 100% certain that we are happy with how we are doing this. So step 1, I've done for you. I've written out the fractions for you. Can you do the rest of the fractions now? Step 2, step 3, step 4, off you go. Pause the video, have a go. Great work, guys. Let's see how you did. Right, first of all, we need to draw the arrows in, and hopefully you've all drawn the arrows to the missing value, which is over here. Right, once you've got that, your next step is then to decide what are you doing to the 6 to get 12, and you're timesing it by 2. Take your pause. 6 times 2 is 12. Happy. Right, so whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. So 2 times 2 is 4, and that's where I leave it. Right, this last one. Okay, I'm going from the 9 to the 3 because I'm moving in this direction because I'm putting my arrow to the missing value. Wait, now I'm going to look at my numerators. Now this is why it's important to make sure I'm drawing in my arrows because I'm going in this direction. So what did I do to the 9 to get 3? I divided it by 3. And now what do we need to do? Great, we need to pause and we need to check, is 9 divided by 3, 3? Yes. Right, so whatever we do to the one number, we need to do to the other number. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and that is your answer, okay? So use those steps to help you. If you need to, write the steps down. Right, can we have a quick look at these fractions here and decide which one are equivalent to one another? So what is step 1? Good, step 1 is write out the fractions. So A is a quarter, B is 3 over, and if we count all of them together, 6. C is 2 over, and how many do I have in total? 8. And D is a half. Now, if I have a look at these fractions, which ones are equal to one another. So they are equivalent fractions, which means if I times or divide them, I'm going to get an answer that matches to it. So if we have a look, we can actually just see by looking at these pictures the amount of space, okay? All right, so if I had to look at A and I have this piece here that's shaded, this amount of space has been shaded, can you notice another one that has the same amount of space that has been shaded? And hopefully you would have seen it as C. Now C, we said, is 2/8 and A is a quarter. And if I look at a quarter and I look at 2/8, right, let's go and check if they are equivalent fractions. Right, what did I do to the 4 to get 8? I times it by 2. What did I do to the 1 to get 2? I times it by 2. And if I times them by the same, they are equivalent fractions. So let's have a look here. B, that has been a half, and D is a half. So those would be equivalent fractions. And if I look at those two, we wrote 3 6s and a half. Right, what did I do to 6 to get 2? I divided it by 3. What did I do to 3 to get 1? I divided it by 3. So if I've done the same to both of them and they work out, then they are equivalent fractions, okay? So hopefully that has made some more sense for you. Right, do you want to try and give this one a go on your own? And if you do, have a go. If you want just a little bit more of a help, then I will do the first one with you and then you can do the second one on your own. So those children who would like to do these two questions, all right, you can do the first one. You can pause the video. And the second one, pause the video. Right, those who just need a little bit more help, let's go through this. Right, so we're going to color half of the shape. So first of all, we've got to say, right, what is this fraction here? I've got two parts that are equal, right? So there's my two parts, and I want to shade one of them. So nice and easy, there's a half. Won't even have to think about it. Now this is the exact same shape, but I divided up into quarters, into 4 equal parts, all right? Now, you can use your equivalent fraction knowledge and you can write it out. Right, how many pieces have it been divided into? 4, okay? And what am I going to do to the 2 to get 4? Using the same method, say 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to say 1 times 2 is 2. And so that is how many blocks I'm going to shade. And if you have a look, it is exactly the same amount of space as this one, okay? Nothing different. They are equivalent fractions. They are equal to one another. See if you can have a go with this one if you have not yet. So pause the video now and see if you can use that same method as what I did. Okay, so we said a third of this shape. Right, so first of all, I've got 3 equal parts. So I just have to color in one of them. Okay, it's already been divided into thirds for me. 3 parts that are equal, so I just have to color in the 1. Okay, there's the 1 part out of the 3. Okay, right, now this has not been divided into 3 parts, so I cannot just color in 1 block. All right, so what I need to do is I need to write a third, because I want to work out a third of this shape is equal to, and hopefully you've really started to think now and you said, right, there are 9 blocks in total. Remember, the bottom number always tells me how many I've got that I've been dividing my shape up into. Right, now, what did I do to the 3 to get 9? I times it by 3. So what must I do to the 1? I must times it by 3. And 1 times 3 is 3. So how many blocks are you going to color in now? Fantastic. You're going to color in 3 blocks. And can you see that these 2 blocks are exactly the same shape? The one has just been divided into 3 parts and the other into 9. And I have shaded the same amount. They both have been shaded a third. The same amount of space has been taken up. Okay, it's nothing different. So hopefully that is making some more sense. So you're using your equivalent fraction knowledge to help you to work out how many to color in. So what are those steps again? Number 1, write down the fractions. So there's my fraction, a third is equal to, because I'm trying to work out a third, is equal to, and then you count how many blocks you have in total, write the number at the bottom. Then you use your equivalent fraction knowledge, starting with the arrows. So you put your arrows in, always pointing to the missing value, and you decide if you're timesing or dividing, and then you go and fill it in using whatever you do to the one number, you do to the other. Right, which one of these is showing a third now? So step number 1, write the fraction. I want a third is equal to, and now what is the bottom number going to be? Super, the bottom number is going to be 6, because there are 6 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now how many pieces have been shaded? 2, so I'm going to put the 2 at the top. Right, and now I go and decide. 3 times what gives me 6? 3 times 2, and is 1 times 2, 2? Yes, it is. So is this one showing a third? Yes, it is. Can you see, do your own one now? So I would like you to write a third, and I would like you to work out, what is this number at the bottom going to be? What is this number at the top going to be? And then can you use your equivalent fraction knowledge to work out if this is an equivalent fraction? So pause the video and have a go. Okay, let's see. Right. We have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts, and I've got 1 at the top. So what did I do to the 3 to get 6? I times it by 2. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. And is 1 times 2 1? No, it is not. So that is not correct. Okay, so this is the one that is showing a third, and this one is not showing a third, because 1 times 2 is not going to be 1. Okay. Right, can you color in? How many triangles would I need to color in if I wanted to color in 3/4 of the shape? See if you can have a go now. Remember, this is the part where the input really counts, so that you can give a go with the test, with the quiz. So can you tell me how many triangles I must shade if I want to color in 3/4? And if you tell me 3, I'm going to tell you right now it's incorrect. Right, if you do need a little bit longer, pause the video and give it a go. Right, so step number 1 is write down the fraction. I want to make 3/4, so I write 3/4 is equal to, how many pieces do I have here in total? How many triangles? I have 8. I've divided my shape up into 8s. Right, now I'm going to go and draw my arrows pointing to the missing value. And I'm going to then use the bottom numbers because they're the ones that give me the most information. And I'm saying 4 times 2 is 8. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other. So 3 times 2 is 6. And so my answer is going to be 6 triangles. Okay, so you would color in, if you had this in front of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and that would be your answer. 3/4. Right, this is the last question, and then you're going to go on to your test. So really just have a last bit of focus, because one of your questions is going to look very similar to this. Can you spot the mistake? So if you want to try and see if you can do this one before you do your quiz, you can pause the video now. Those who want a little bit of extra help, you can then carry on listening to me. Okay, so what is step number 1? Write the fraction. Right, so A, I have 1 over 4. So I have 1 block shaded out of 4 equals. Right, how many blocks do I have shaded here in total? 6. And now instead of going to count all these blocks, I just count the top row, which is 4, and the side, which is 4. And I say 4 times 4 is 16. Right, now I go and work it out. Okay, put my arrows in. There we go. And now it doesn't matter which direction I go in terms of, am I going to do the top numbers or the bottom numbers? Just have to choose one. I'm going to say 1 times 6 is 6, which is correct. But is 4 times 6 16? No, it is not. So that is going to be incorrect. The correct answer should be 24. So 4 times 6 is 24. See if you can go and have a go at B now, if you would like. And then unpause the video when you're ready. Right, hopefully you're getting the hang of this and you're finding that actually fractions is very easy. It's just part of a whole. It's nothing scary. So step number 1. What is step number 1? Great job, guys. It is write down the fraction. So the fraction here is I have 1 whole that I've shaded out of 3. Right, how many do I have shaded here? I have 1 shaded out of 6. Right, now I'm going to go and use my equivalent fraction knowledge. I'm going to use the methods. I'm going to put my arrows. Now, it doesn't really matter which direction I go in because I am got all my information already. It's only when we're missing a value do I need to put my arrow pointing there. Right, so I'm going to say 3 times 2 is 6 and 1 times 2 is not 1. So my mistake is there. That needs to be a 2. So hopefully now, guys, this is making some more sense, okay? And it is helping you, all right? Let's have a quick recap of the steps, and then we're going to go on to the question. So number 1, what is number 1? What is step number 1 is write out the fractions. But if I'm trying to find an equivalent fraction, I'm going to draw arrows pointing to the missing value. Okay, so I'm going to make sure my arrow is pointing to the missing value. Step number 3 is I've got to decide if I'm timesing or dividing using the most information they give me. So is the bottom numbers I'm going to be looking at or the top numbers? And then the most important thing, whatever I do to the one number, I must do to the other number. Right. So your questions is on Teams now. Okay, so you can then log on to Teams. Here are the questions, and I'm going to go through them very quickly. You all have the same questions. So for those who don't have Teams, here they are as well. So I'm going to go through all the questions very quickly. So if you're getting stuck on a question, you can come and see if you can just listen and then get the helpful hints. Right, so questions 1 to 3 is simply finding the equivalent fraction like we did for our starter. Remember, if you're doing Teams, the quiz on Teams, you just write the number. Don't write the fraction, just the number. Otherwise, the computer is not going to match it up correctly. Okay, so you're going to do the steps. Write the fraction. Put your arrows pointing to the missing value. Look at the most information. Are you timesing or dividing? Pause, check, and then go and fill in the missing value. Okay, so that's nice and easy. Question number 4, it says, what is the fraction that are gray? So how many birds here are gray out of the total? So you should have something / something. Okay, so the gray birds out of the total amount of birds in total. Okay, and the answer is not 3 for here. Okay, what is the total number? Right, question number 5, how many pieces must I shade if I want to shade 2/3? So first of all, I'm going to go look, how many pieces do I have here already? I've already got thirds. So how many do I need to shade then? Question number 6 is an equivalent fraction. You've got to now work out the missing values. In Teams, if you can just make sure that when you're doing it on the quiz, you're going to write the one number, this number first, then hit spacebar, so leave a gap, and then write the other number to get the correct answer. Question number 7 says, Tom ate half a cookie. So here's his cookie and he ate half of it. What fraction shows the amount he ate? So out of all of these, write the fraction that you think is equal to a half. So you should be writing a half is equal to, and you've got to go and find out which fraction is equal to a half. What's an equivalent fraction? So would it be a quarter or a third or 2/4 or 3/4? You're going to write the fraction for me. If you're doing Teams, then you need to write it like a fraction. So if you think it's 3/4, you write 3-4. Okay. Question number 8, it says, how many pieces must I shade if I want to shade half of this shape? So how many pieces? Question number 9 is, I want to shade 3/4 of the shape. So again, write down the fraction. 3/4 is equal to, and now how many do I have in total? Count all the triangles, put them at the bottom, and then work out your equivalent fraction. And the last one for question number 10 It says Sarah wants to shade 3/4 of this shape. She has already shaded 2. How many more triangles must she shade? So I would first of all work out 3/4 of this shape. So what is the total amount? So you're going to write 3/4, write the fraction first, is equal to how many triangles are there in total? Write them over here. Then work out your equivalent fraction. And now this number, she's already shaded 2. So what do you think you're going to do to this number to get the answer? Okay, so that is a bit of your helpful hints to answer this. Those who don't have Teams, you can then just take a picture of your work and send it to year5@theparmeracademy.com email address. And those who do have Teams, log on, do your quiz, and remember, I will only give you feedback at the end of the day. Good luck, guys. So if you need me to pause, you can pause at any time. So here you go. Right, good luck, guys. I hope it all goes well, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye.